Okay, got it.
Hello, Magi-Nation fans. I'm here today with Matt Holmberg, one of the original team artists. He is well regarded as probably the founding artist at this point for Magi-Nation. He is attributed across 766 cards and in different forms from the old sets, which accounted for almost 60% of all of the cards that he did work in some form or another on, including he was the hero of Trader's Reach, the set that's up for Kickstarter, in which he worked on 126 of the cards across the set.
How many cards were the set entirely?
Um, I'm trying to remember. It was pretty close to 10 per region, so I would I would be hard pressed to say that there are more than 130, 135 off the top of my head.
If you said I did 126, I would bet it's somewhere maybe just south of 150, like
Yeah,
140. Because Whirl, Allison Strom did a couple, Rich did maybe 8. I think there's probably 10 or 12 that were not me.
I
So
think
yeah, maybe 100
150 sounds pretty close. So that would
close.
be
Yeah.
24 across the set that you didn't work on.
Yeah. Yep. That was a fun one. That was the end. That was the last crazy set. Super excited to see something happen for it and have people be able to see it. Made all those cards. I guess I'll just go into story time. I don't know how you want to do it. Like just
Yeah, go
talking
ahead.
about any old thing, Magi-Nation. But yeah, with Trader's Reach, it we had finished the video game and we had some other things in the pipeline, but it kind of wasn't working out for a multitude of reasons. And most of the company was let go. We went from 33 people to 3, I think, as far as like non-management folks. And pretty depressing day, as you might imagine. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a very big, lively company full of creative, brilliant people, and then all of a sudden, it's like a bunch of empty desks and boxes, and you and 2 other people. And Mike Lysek, who had done a lot of the league stuff up to that point, and some development on cards, and I were sitting there with Lisa Smith, and we were just kind of, I don't remember exactly how it came to be, but it was like, we're not doing anything else, and I don't think they're going to print another set, but we got time to burn, so let's just make another set. And I remember I grabbed a piece of paper, and I don't remember what his name was. He's a called guy, and he's wearing a big flowy cape, and he's got a really kind of sinister pointy helmet on, and he's leaning back a lot.
let me see if
And
I can find that based on
it's
the description. Is it a Trader's Reach card?
it's a Trader's Reach called Magi.
Okay. Sounds like Cinder.
Again, I just drew it right there on the spot. Yeah, I bet that's right. And yeah, Mike started writing rules, and we just made it in spite of the fact that we were pretty sure it would never get made. But that freed up uh, a lot of kind of creative energy, because a lot of things that I basically had total control over it. I could just start drawing the guys. Nope,
Is it
not him.
not this one? Let's see.
Nope. He was
Uh,
he was one of the basic guys. That's a cool one.
you have Zandia, no helmet.
No, it's not Jory, not
Huh,
Zandia.
those are the 3 in Trader's Reach, but
Huh. Boy, I'll have to go through and look. Anyway, but yeah, we just like let's make a set anyway. And the fans were really involved. We were very active with Insider was the fan site at the time. Shout out to Jim Wong, wherever he is. Yeah, and just made the set kind of for fun, and it was the best art I'd ever made to that point in my career by a good long amount. I mean, it was really, I was just gaining a lot of confidence and trying a lot of new things. I was drawing a lot of other things outside of work. And yeah, really, it was the way I kind of always wanted it to look, but it was sad that I never got to share it really. The one cool thing was it was, earlier days of the internet. So I was able to share it with the people who really, really cared the most. They were on the fan sites with me. So they were, so it kind of, it didn't feel like it was a waste at all, but I'm certainly very happy to see it be be published.
Hmm. So if you want to tell maybe what was one of your favorite things working on the project back before, any favorite cards or
Oh wow, favorite cards. I always liked the underneath stuff the most. I was a little old for Pokemon when it came out, but the cartoon was on all the time, and uh, I watched it when I got back from. I was working at UPS at the time, leading up to Magi-Nation. That was my job, was loading boxes in a trailer. And I loved Brock. I loved his kind of his skin tone and his squinty closed eyes. And I kind of thought that was a neat thing. It was like, they don't have him emote with the big classic anime eyes. They just got kind of squinty eyes. And so, yeah, I'll kind of do that. So I really like the underneath characters a lot. I liked Ulk the most. I drew Ulk a couple times. I got a custom art of Ulk that I made for my own deck. That was really fun. Uh, those were oh yeah, that was a later one. That was a cool one. Yeah, really into
that
drawing.
that one's in the current deck. So
Oh yeah, yeah, cool. Yeah, I always like the underneath stuff the most. Drawing mushrooms is fun, and deep underwater things and cave things are always super fun because nobody really knows exactly what the kind of flora or fauna would be. You can kind of draw mushrooms in any kind of shape or arrangement or color. Same with like underneath or underwater, creatures or plants. You can just like, hey, this thing's got these kind of weird leafy bladey bits on it. It's like that's very possibly something you might see underwater. It's got you freestyle a lot. So I enjoyed that. I kind of learned a cheap trick to make caves looking at old just backgrounds in cartoons and figured out a way to do that in Photoshop. I was very, very young when we made Magi-Nation. I was like 19 when we started, I think, just 19. So like I didn't have a whole lot of experience, doing anything other than drawing kind of fun fantasy anime looking things. But backgrounds and stuff, I didn't have a lot of experience. So as I figured things out, I would use them, in my imagination arts. And drawing caves was one that I got a handle on early, and I really loved always drawing caves. Oh my gosh, talk about turning the contrast down in that background. What a fun monster, though. I'm a little nugget, I'm a nugget with spikes. Christopher, I wonder. Now that is a funny thing. I wonder why. If maybe I went over and had Mike Christopher help me ink that, or maybe I took a picture or a piece of off of one of his. That's fun. Wonder. Oh, so yeah, some of those. I guess yeah, I had Rich. A few people that had helped me with Trader Tree, so it's just on my own drawing a lot of it. And some of the other artists I would get a hold of and be like, could you draw a couple of these? And I actually found one of the CDs that had the Rich's inks on them, and so I colored a couple that he drew, which was kind of a reversal. I don't think often that I ever color anything that Rich drew, and I'd be shocked if you could find one that Rich colored that I drew. That was kind of a baton passing there as in the history of the company. There was a point where I was leaving for a minute with a lot of the old team, and then Rich moved from doing video game art into doing the card art. He might have talked about this in his thing, but yeah, we kind of did a download mind meld. Like, so how do you do these cards? What are you doing? And like, this is how I'm using Photoshop to do it. He was just out of school, but he had a lot more art experience for sure. But I was using Photoshop, a lot at that point. So yeah, it was good. Learned a lot from each other. I love everybody on that project. Mike Vega too. Mike and Hayato both. I learned everything from those guys doing that project. I always joked I didn't go to college. I just learned on the job. And that was I called in a couple people who were way more qualified to be doing something like this than I was, and then I just yeah, vampired their knowledge off of them.
so since you've come back, you've worked on a solid half dozen of pieces,
Yeah,
some
I
for
was
fun,
streaming
some.
streaming for a minute. I was when you were saying that it was gonna you were gonna get some traction on actually printing this stuff. I that was really excited. I wanted to do some streaming and just say hi to everybody and talk about some art. So yeah, I did redid a couple of old pictures, some that were particularly crunchy. This looks very much like the old Amulet of Ombor. It's Amulet of Ombor. Uh it but the old one was it was the big like black micron lines and it was like lens flare going over it. It was just very kind of sloppy and amateurish. So that'd be fun to redo it. Sparkly. Yeah, drawing gems is always fun.
how, how has
I
it
was
felt?
surprised I didn't put a lens flare on this.
How has it felt going back and working
Oh,
on?
drawing all imagination stuff was super fun. I it was a trip. If to me, I'd gone away in my career. It started with drawing fun fantasy anime things with imagination. That's what I wanted to be doing, right? Like the things that like watching Tenchi Muyo and playing Final Fantasy and stuff was like I want to make this kind of stuff. And like that was yeah, it was just kind of like, oh, I can just kind of draw whatever I want. This is kind of what I will. This is what I do want to draw and be working on. But then after that, I thought that was what my career would be, was drawing the fun things that I want to draw. But as it turns out, most of the time you've got to draw things that other people want you to draw. And I had to go on and do a lot of things that weren't this at all. You know, not even close. I got a very long and interesting career making casual games, which were kind of kid games like Bejeweled and things like that. And I drew all kinds of things, and it was very fun. But it wasn't like my internal happy place, you know, not drawing fun manga fantasy things. So to kind of go back to it, it felt very good. I intentionally gone away from it. It kind of hurt me to to look at fun fantasy anime looking things because it was something that I wasn't kind of allowed to do, and it kind of moved away from me, and I moved away from it, and it kind of made my heart hurt to look at, you know. So it took a couple minutes, took a couple months to kind of. I was like, I'm gonna start watching some old cartoons. I'll play an old video game. I'll try to get back into that. Like, how do you draw a cool looking character? How does it like it? So yeah, it felt very good to kind of do. This picture you've got up right here is a really funny one on stream. I was talking about a fun Photoshop trick. Did you catch that? Did you watch this?
Yeah, the how you did the background.
Yeah, yeah.
Did you do the same trick on the actual coals? I don't remember.
No, it's even worse on the Coles. Just absolutely shameless. I was like, I Googled for a reference pic and I found one that was just so great and perfect. I'm like, you know, I'm just gonna take a marquee tool and just swoop, copy a little bit of this, and I'm move it over to my picture. And I think I ran a median filter on it. You got to make it look a little more smooshy and cartoony. And then yeah, did some
Is
color
that an
dodging on it.
actual picture of coals then?
That is a JPEG, effectively the inside of it, yeah. With some artistic nudging to make it not look like a Google JPEG, but
Yeah.
yep, that's a Google JPEG.
the and I know that the background I watched as you were
Oh
um
yeah, yeah. It's a
using a
picture of
piece of fried
fried
chicken.
chicken. Yeah, and then you invert it. You use the inversion tool or
I
inversion filter or whatever.
think the
Yeah,
only
fun
thing
stuff.
that would have been more appropriate would be a taco. So
Yeah, yeah. Like yeah, you're right. I could have zoomed in on a taco somewhere. Yeah, yeah. Rod of coals. That was yeah, that was that one. Balamant was another one. Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I just sent you those earlier today.
yeah. Uh so for anyone that's seeing these new, um Matt has volunteered the uh, alt arts that he's done for a couple extra cards to be able to release more for the Kickstarter, just so that more people have the ability to get even more cards, which I think is really awesome. Uh,
Oh yeah, certainly. I would say I said before. I think to the other guys too, but yeah, any art that I've done, I will gladly yeah offer up for any imagination project. It's my it's my baby. It's my first ever game, and yeah, I love imagination very much. I I would yeah, always do art to help out on old MND. Very exciting to me to see that people are still enjoying it.
How, so you talked a little bit on the Discord about how you had at least some role working on the Game Boy game as well.
Oh
Um,
yeah,
how many
yeah.
people did jump teams like that? Because I know that
So it was. I'll try to make it a brief. I don't know how long you want your video to be. Flashbacks. So like, and that's you've heard me tell the story a couple times as any Imagination fan that has listened to me quack on about Imagination history has. But like, I was in Redmond where SquareSoft and Nintendo were as a kid, and I worked at a couple of game companies long before I was old enough to be employed. Nintendo and SquareSoft. And at SquareSoft, I met a lot of fun and interesting people. Hayato and Josh. I'd met my buddy Mike through another friend of ours, and doing some America, I think, submissions, really old school stuff. But all friends I'd had, I bumped into some guys from Nintendo that wanted to make some games. My uncle said I got a nephew who's an artist. I met up with those dudes, and the first thing I did when they were like, "Quit your job tomorrow. We're gonna quit our Nintendo jobs and we're gonna go make a game right now." And I was, uh, yeah, let's go. I called all my old friends that I thought could possibly make a game. We'd always joke, while we were playtesting Secret of Evermore or Chrono Trigger or whatever. Like, if we ever get into the game industry, man, you got to call each other. We gotta, bring each other in. Storm the gate or whatever. All right. So I called them all up. And yeah, I kind of assembled my dream team up to my whole life leading up to that. All the guys that I thought that I'd ever want to make a game with, I just called them all, and I was like, "Get your buns out here. We're making games." And we really did not know what we were doing at all. None of us did. I think the oldest of us was 20 or something. Josh and Ida were younger than I was, are still presumably. um,
they
and
haven't passed you yet.
yeah, and it was like kind of just whiteboard, what are we trying to do here? And we were like, okay, we're gonna make a big world, we're gonna make a card game, we're gonna make a Game Boy game, very much just Pokemon blueprint here, let's go. And what do we have the power to do here? Greg knew how to make some video game stuff and knew some people. Phil was working on designing card game mechanics. Josh was a very, very game designer and card game mechanic guy, and he did a lot of the early kind of mechanical design, make a computer do up to that point. He was pretty much capable of making it do. Mike was a better illustrator than me by a mile, and we kind of just figured like, what can we do with what we've got here? So we started making card illustrations. We looked around to see where we could get um how what we need to make a video game. They got a video game team together. That was another big long story with some other people, but for we effectively made the majority of the base set before the video game was really in full swing. And when the video game was being developed, it was me and Mike making Awakening. But me and Mike were also doing a lot on the video game. I was lead QA on the video game because I had done QA at Nintendo and SquareSoft. Uh, but also drawing monsters. You can't just take the drawings from the card game and put them in the video game. It's an 8-bit game. You can only have 4 colors for every 8 pixels. You can only have 30 or 40 pixels in either direction. You can only have 16 colors on the screen all together at one point. So there's insane restrictions on the art for a Game Boy game, right?
Mm-hmm.
So working with the artists on the Game Boy game, that was Hayato, Rich, Tim, all those guys. So me and Mike were doing some art with those guys to get the pictures for the graphics in the game. And all of the world design, all of the kind of like, what does this thing do or that thing do? Mike, who was doing a lot of the art on Awakening, Mike Vega, he did a lot of the writing in the game, the Game Boy game, a lot of the funny little blurbs and jokes you see in things. If you click on a wheelbarrow, it says, "This reminds me of my dog." It's such a super silly stuff, and we're like, why would a wheelbarrow remind you of your dog? He's like, I don't know, I just had this memory of like picking up my dog's back legs and walking around with him like a wheelbarrow when I was like in a diaper as a kid. Just stupid like that, but it was funny stuff. He put those little blurbs all throughout the video game. Mike's independent comic artist and very good writer, and probably, if not the funniest person I know, top three funniest people I know. Just a hilarious guy. But yeah, we were all kind of working on everything. There was just very few people, and we were trying to do a lot, and we did do a lot. We made that video game in like 9 months, I think, and the card game also it just incredibly rapidly in the kind of development only 19-year-olds can do. We would joke we'd add like a hell week, this week we were going to stay up, we're going to stay at the office all week, and hell week turned into extended hell week, and then extra like Buto hell week, and then it eventually it was months of that on end. But with a team that had never made a game before, and none of us were older than 25, we managed to make a really rather good video game and card game,
Yeah.
honestly. Yeah,
And
definitely.
you still have people that love both of them 20 years later, which
Yeah,
is
definitely endearing and standing the test of time. One of the I guess not funny things, but interesting things about was the game mechanic itself. This is gonna just all be rambling. It's gonna be very hard to section this off in any way that makes sense. But the game mechanic it's I think is very interesting, and it was shared in the Game Boy game too, but it's just a single resource mechanic. I mean, you play a lot of games and
yeah.
design a lot of games and think about games a lot. It doesn't give you a lot of knobs to twist for balance or design. If you have hit points and mana, you can have things that affect either or. If you've got a magic scale and a dexterity scale and a constitution, all these things you can change one, change the other. You got one number, right? And it makes it very easy to learn. It's very easy to kind of understand. You can look at it and go, okay, energy transfers and goes, okay, got it. But how do you design a game that's that simple? That's got so little. Uh, yeah, and it's just an absolute brilliant success and design there. The way I remember it and the way I believe it to be was that was a Josh Lytle kind of brain moment there. The energy transfer and energizing mechanic. One of the fun mechanics on another point on mechanics was the starting hand. The starting hand on Magi. That was a real big one. And one of the I think maybe other games had done it from that point, and probably a lot more do now. But like, we needed to get around the WotC patent. There was a very, very scary patent that WotC had that was kind of all encompassing. Very difficult to design a card game that didn't infringe on it. And they had all the money in the world and power, so it was very easy for them to squash you. And so we're making a card game. So just out of hand, they're like, no. And so like, how do we get around this patent? And that was one of the ways was having a deck of random cards and drawing off the top was one of the things covered, in the patent. But it was like, what if you can look through the deck then for specific cards off of what you chose? That's new and different. So yeah, like the restrictions, as often is the case in design and art, is the restrictions of it and making a one resource thing, having to get around that WotC mechanic. That made a really brilliant thing, I think. A really beautiful game.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time, Matt.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, absolutely. I could talk about Magi-Nation history forever, but yeah, no, thank you. You're the real MVP here. If you would have told me 10 years ago that I'd be having this conversation or that Paris Reach would be coming out or that we were able to find the cards, that was the wild one. Yeah, I wouldn't have believed it. So yeah, it's almost like I'm dreaming. It's a weird one. Really, really excited about it, and thank you very much.
yeah. For those of you that don't know, on top of everything else Matt has done amazing, he sifted through all of the old art files from 2i to be able to send them over.
Yeah,
So
when 25-year old stuff in an old dusty attic, it was like a movie. Like digging through all this old stuff and these old memories just flooding back. And it was like, what are the chances we've actually got these files still? These files that we never thought we'd ever need. Yeah. I found them, got an old zip drive to work. Started, yeah. It was a yeah, quite the operation, but found them. Very excited. So thanks again.
thank you so much.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
I'm sure we'll talk again and
yeah.
the
And yeah,
fan
please do. Hopefully this all works out real well.
let's